You are listening to Know You're Crazy. My name is Susan Denee. We all have crazy. What separates us is how we choose to deal with it. I'm going to be delivering engaging and actionable tools to own your crazy, treat your crazy, and turn it into your own superpower. I hope that you walk away from this show feeling the power and strength within you. And never forget to enjoy your journey because you are worth it. Hey everyone, welcome to the Know You're Crazy talk show. My name is Susan Denee, and I am talking about emotional recovery in the raw. Simply put, I just like to get straight to the point and really talk about what's going on in our lives. In particular, the hot topic for the last several shows has been all around relationships, specifically around communication. And little do you know, you can thank my clients for these topics because I like to work with clients who inspire me. I wouldn't have it any other way. With that, for me, what that essentially is, I like to work with people who are willing to do the work. If they're not willing to look within, if they're not looking for change in their lives and no direction in their lives as far as finding their own answers to the coaching guidance, I'm not interested in working with them. But when you get a client that is willing to do the work and they are emotionally vulnerable and willing to suit up and show up, it can really make for some inspiring sessions. And for you guys, some hot topics that get discussed in those sessions. And so that's some of the content that I'm bringing you is actual real life coaching sessions and feedback that's being provided to clients. And with that feedback is always a set of tools. And that's what I like to do is provide the tools to you. And I'm a little bit ornery today, I guess a little bit, I've had a couple of things personally happen in my arena with communication, let's just say in a professional format with contractors and construction folks. It just hasn't really gone in the direction that I would prefer it to go. And so there's always a place for boundaries. There's always a place for affirmative verbiage without being cruel, mean, intimidating, or unkind. The reason I share that is because what we're talking about today is how do you get rid of relationships in your life that are non-beneficial? How do you get rid of them? You heard me last show really go into some detail about different characteristics of a doormat personality and a bulldozer personality. And at the core of those two personalities comes all personality emotional traits. Let me reword that a little bit. But at the core of those, ultimately, what happens is we shut down or we over communicate simply because we don't have the right vocabulary, nor have we identified relationships that we keep showing up for that no longer serve us. And this isn't about blaming the other person because remember, a relationship takes two sides to that party. It's a relationship. That means it takes two or more, right? But we're only going to go one-on-one right now. Okay, but that takes two people. So this isn't about being mad at the other person or being justified and getting all righteous about the fact that you're going to rid yourself of somebody. That's not what I'm talking about, because if you listen to me long enough, I'm interested in you taking full accountability for your part. I'm not interested in what they're doing to you. That's why you don't hear me share a lot about past experiences that we have. I will touch base and I will respect past experiences. Past traumas, past things like that. But I'm more interested as an adult, what are you doing on your side of the table to keep your relationship strong and healthy? Because it's really, because what you experience in your journey is what you're attracting into your journey. It's what you've requested into your journey. It's what you've participated into your journey. It's not because somebody forced anything on you as an adult. You are an adult. You have choices. You have decisions. You have a way of changing it up. And that is such a wonderful thing to take advantage of. And today, I'm ready to share with you some stuff that you can do. So if you have a relationship in your life that has taken up some space that you want to get rid of, today I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to give you some tools and some tips. And the only thing you need to bring to the party is some courage and some willingness. And I can guarantee you that the relationships that are no longer serving you can be gone. And you don't have to be a jerk for doing it. So I'm going to dive into this stuff. All right. So what does a relationship feel like that's no longer serving you? What does it feel like? So what I like to call them are like these little floaties. All right. They're like little floaties. They're like an old friend who contacts you and maybe they were in your old world, your old self. Maybe they pop up out of nowhere after 5 years and you've transformed your life on some level, but they call and then you look down and your thought is, oh, I really don't want to talk to that person anymore because I remember what that felt like. So these are called they're like little floaty relationships. They're relationships that kind of come and go. And I'm giving an example of one that may have been like from your past and that enters. But there's relationships currently possibly going on that you just really don't want to take that phone call. There's an emotional reaction to it. So floaty. Yes, these are the tools from the Know You're Crazy talk show. We are calling it a floaty. That's my own original little verbiage there. You can call it a clinger if that makes you feel better. It's a relationship that's no longer serving you, but you continue to show up. You continue to tolerate because you just haven't quite figured out how to make them go away. I've done several shows recently on boundary setting that this is kind of in that category. I've also done a few shows on scripting, and this is definitely going to fall into that category. So what do you do when you want to identify a floaty or a clinger relationship that is no longer serving you? One is, let's recognize what it is. Okay, so have you ever had the phone call come through and you notice you really don't want to pick up the phone? That's an example I just gave. Someone from your past has reached out and your first thought is, I don't want to talk to them, or why are they calling me? Or you've got somebody in your life on a regular basis who, when you communicate with them, it just feels icky, like there's some type of imbalance in the relationship. This has been one for me in my past that has come up a few times. It's kind of like when you have, like we would all love a relationship that truly gives 50-50, right? Some of you are ultimate caretakers. Some of you give so much in your relationship that you may not even know what it's like to receive 50% feedback or 50% emotional attention from the other person, because you give, and then suddenly you wake up and you feel exasperated, you feel depleted, you're avoiding relationships because every time you talk to them, you have to do something. And this may not be a tangible thing that you have to do, but it could be. But it might just be you have to emotionally show up and tolerate. You have to emotionally tolerate more than you want to. And so when this person starts reaching out to you, or this relationship starts reaching out to you, you really just want to avoid it. You just want to avoid it. And we've all had these relationships, and some of us still have a few floaties or clingers hanging in there that we just haven't come up with a way to satisfy that problem because we haven't practiced enough. And so ultimately, these relationships will feel what I like to say, either the relationship, it'd be beautiful if all relationships were 50-50. In a probably a functional, healthy world, they should be. And I will say should in a good way, not in a shaming way. I always pay attention to that word. But if we have the correct communication skill set and we're able to ask for what we need, and we're able to set boundaries, and we're able to really frame the type of relationship and the type of love and gifts and fun and joy that we want in our life, then these relationships are possible for you. If you struggle in this area, then keep listening, because the relationships I'm talking about are the ones that when you think about them, it's emotionally draining. It's emotionally draining. You know, when I get into talking about different relationships and how they feel, and I like to walk back and say, how does this feel to you? How does the relationship feel when you think about it? Does it feel heavy? Does the relationship feel heavy? I'm going to just take one sidestep on this. If you're thinking about an intimate relationship, let's say you've been involved with somebody for a while and you're working through some problems, or you're working through your own, maybe you're in therapy. Let's not count that one right now. I'm talking about the ones that are more, because I will talk about those ones, but the ones I'm focused on right now are more of the acquaintances that you just kind of want to go away. It's the person you see at a social gathering that you're running across the room the other direction, because when you think about them or you see their name pop up on your cell phone, you feel drained. They are energy draining. I was just sharing with someone today, and they were explaining that they have someone in their life that's really wants them to, be closer than what they are. And what the person was sharing was, unfortunately, something just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. Like, it feels like every time I'm around this person, I have to do something, or they're asking me to go get their groceries, or they're asking me, can I fill up their gas tank? Or they're asking me, can I walk their dog? And in the beginning, I thought we were friends, but then, it's to do me a favor. They opened up the door and said, well, I'll do this for you, or maybe I'll pay you a few bucks to do this for me. And then pretty soon the dynamics of the relationship start changing. So these relationships can be where dynamics have changed. The agreement is no longer the agreement. Reflecting back on a show I did on agreements, we've got silent agreements, we've got verbal agreements. And so has the relationship agreement changed, and now you're no longer receiving what you used to receive? This might also happen if you're friends with somebody for a long time and it feels really 50-50, but then they start going through some personal situations that are really heavy, and that's all they bring to the party. That's all they bring. Yeah, you hang around with them and it's all about their problems, which, I can appreciate being a good friend, but when it goes on and on and on, and then your needs are never met and it's no longer fun hanging around them because now they're stuck in their drama, that might be a floaty that turns into that, or it turns into a clinger. It turns into these relationships that we really want to be rid of. All right, so I'm going to take a short break. And on that break, I'm going to have you just simply pause and ask yourself, what names pop up or what faces pop up for you if you think about these relationships in your life? And these can be in all kinds of different capacity. They can be a professional, if you're self-employed, some clients that are no longer working for you. These can be service relationships that no longer work for you. These can be just friends and acquaintances that no longer work for you. Like, open it up. And if you had to say, take away from all justifications, what names come up for you? And when we return, I'm going to dive into that. And we're going to talk about relationship inventory to take you one step further into understanding which of these relationships are draining me and which ones would I really like to do without. All right, I will be back. Thanks. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Know You're Crazy Talk Show. My name is Susan Denee, and I am talking about emotional recovery in the raw. Today, I'm talking about relationships that no longer are beneficial to you, and how do you get rid of them? It can feel like a floaty in the consciousness, like it's out there, there's not closure to the relationships, you feel into your bones that you don't want to be around this person, yet you still show up. You still answer the phone. You still tolerate the intolerable lunch where they're telling you all their problems. It's the clinger, it's the one that and we get in these relationships, and it's not necessarily that the other party's bad. It's not even that. It's just either we grow, we change, our needs change, their life changes. They go from being a fun and easygoing relationship, and maybe that's what attracted you as friends or acquaintances or whatever. And then all of a sudden they go through something personally, and that's all they talk about. And you can't get a word in edgewise. And it's like, why am I going to lunch with this person? Why am I showing up with this person? Every time I'm around them, they talk and they talk and they talk, and they never do anything about their problems. Okay. This is a sign that there's a relationship in your life, because when I ended the first segment, what I was sharing with you is we were going to come back, and I had just started hitting on inventory. Okay. So inventory of relationships. Should I write that? This inventory. All right. Inventory of relationships. Which ones no longer work for you? Have you really decided to think about this? Because a lot of times what happens is we just kind of fall into it. And the falling into it is what I'm describing right now. The falling into it is going home to your partner and bitching about the fact that, Judy over here just won't shut up about all her problems. and you're venting constantly or you're complaining, but you're the ones that's signing up for the relationship, because ultimately there's a break in communication. So you do have a couple options. I'm giving the option of when we really want to just be rid of the relationship. We want to bring closure to the relationship. We recognize that it no longer serves our highest self. It's no longer who we are. There's no sense in trying to rekindle the relationship. There's really no desire to try to communicate and fix it, because that would be the second option. Okay. So I'm not going to like exclude that. All right. I just want to recognize, if you're listening to this, you're like, well, what if I want to talk to him? Or why does everything just need to go away? Or I'm going to hit that up because you might have a fear of breakup. That's next. That's next. Anyway, but no, communication is absolutely an option. I'm just not going to talk about that. If you want to talk about communication to save a relationship, it's probably on one of my prior shows, or maybe that'll be the next one. But what I'm talking about are the ones that you're pretty clear on. You don't really feel like going back and rehashing everything. Like there's just no sense. Maybe the relationship has just been an acquaintance, and it's just an acquaintance that pops up for you, but you're like, man, every time I'm around that person, I know it's not a heavy relationship. That's why I continue to go. But at the same time, they really annoy me. And they really don't ever ask me how I'm doing. It's always about them. Or every time I'm around them, their energy. Remember, I was talking about energy draining? They're so drained, I feel drained. And that's not the person I want to be. In recovery, we have this great saying, and this makes total sense. You probably heard it in the motivational world. I don't like the word motivation, but I'll use it to make a point, where people say, if you want to be a winner, hang with the winners. Well, we say that in sobriety also, because, we can get sober. And if you go into the rooms of recovery, I mean, these are rooms of recovery. Nobody said these were rooms of perfect individuals. In fact, they can be the most train-wrecked individuals you'll come across in a period of time until they get better. But in that room, there is better. There is better. There's people who have actually done the work and who are absolutely inspirational. So we will say, hang with the winners. Same way in life. If you want to feel elevated, if you want to feel joyful, if you want to feel alive, then hang with the folks who are doing that. And because those are decisions you get to make. Remember, we make the decisions on who we choose to spend our time around with. Who we choose to spend our time with, we make those decisions. If I'm choosing to hang out with Judy, and Judy's a downer, and Judy's always going through problems, and I'm feeling like I'm her counselor every time we sit down, I'm not feeling that. So how do I get rid of Judy? I'm just using Judy. I really don't know a Judy. I don't even know a Judy. That's probably good. I don't know a Judy, because I've helped some people. That's good. Nobody personal out there. But I'm just saying, if you got a Judy in your life who's draining you, that's what I'm talking about. So inventory, you're constantly complaining about him. When you reflect back on this relationship, you feel drained just even thinking about it. You can honestly say to yourself, when they've come up on my phone, I have wanted to run and avoid. In fact, I don't even answer the last 3 phone calls because I just want it to go away. They text you, you don't give an answer back, or you sit there forever trying to craft what the right answer would be to get out of having to do something. And this whole time, it just continues to float. It just continues to float in your consciousness. And so now it's like, okay, well, I'm taking this inventory. So now that you've at break, I asked you, stop and think to yourself, who are the relationships in my life that feel heavy? Who are the ones that feel like they're emotionally draining when I'm around them? Which ones are no longer serving me? I can't remember who I was talking to recently, but I remember making a joke saying, and by the way, we don't get to pick our family all the time, but that's not to say that boundaries can't be made with family, and communication can't be done with family. On these relationships, these are ones that are probably going to go away, which can be family, but that's a heavier show. I'm not going to hit on it today. I'm just letting you know I'm aware of that. So we're taking the inventory. We're figuring out what are the symptoms of when a relationship's not working. How would I identify a relationship? These are some of the clues that I'm going over with you right now. You're constantly complaining. It feels heavy when you think about it. You're avoiding the phone calls. Those are the most popular ones that you're going to be experiencing. When you think about the person or you think about things they say to you, here's another one. I've been doing shows on passive aggressiveness and when it's happening to you. When passive aggressive comments are made to us, it can make us feel like we're being parented, almost like we don't know what to say in response to it, but it feels very shameful. It makes us feel bad about ourselves. But because it's passive aggressive, there seems to be like, oh, I wish, oh, I'm going to really not cuss right now. As I really want to, it'd be like a mind F about, is that true? Like you would pause and think that, but it doesn't feel good, which tells you that it's not true. But passive aggressiveness can be really harming. So these relationships, that your communications, their communications might feel passive aggressive, to where when you're around them, you feel like you've done something wrong. And once again, I'm not talking about intimate relationships right now that are working through problems or working through things, because sometimes in our long-term relationship, these type of things come up and we're working through them and making an effort. These are, once again, for the relationships that really you could just do without. You don't really need to keep tolerating them. All right, so, and I hit on one-sided relationships. This will come up for you as a relationship to get rid of if the relationship constantly feels one-sided. You're doing a lot of the work. You are not, and this is something for you to think about. Have you identified within yourself what it feels like to emotionally receive from somebody? If I'm around someone and they elevate me, they make me feel good, they make me feel joyful, I'm laughing around them, I'm emotionally receiving joy from them. Okay, does that make sense? If I'm around somebody who's just like Zen, you know, those really calm, loving personalities, they're just like tuned in with themselves, super good, and I just have this feeling of calm. Well, I'm emotionally receiving calmness from them. So those things I'm going to attract to my best self. Okay, that's the example. So why was I talking about that? I almost forgot what I was talking about. I think I lost my train of thought there. Hang on. I'll get back there. All right. Those are not one-sided relationships. Those are, okay, that's what I was saying. So you're emotionally receiving from them. And when we're not emotionally receiving from the other party, we want to ask ourselves, why am I showing up? Take your inventory, and do I still need to be in this relationship? I mean, what is that belief system? And so here we go. I'm going to start breaking into a little bit before I go to another break here. What is it in the belief system that would keep us hanging on to a relationship that's not truly honoring our best selves? What's in the belief system? Okay. What is your belief about breaking up? Why do most people hit a wall when it comes to removing relationships from their life? Sometimes we need to take responsibility, not even sometimes, we should take full responsibility for what we attract into our life, but then also realize you don't have to continue to tolerate it. You can make it go away. Like, it's okay to remove unhealthy relationships from your life. It's okay to end a relationship. It's not mean. Sometimes it's necessary, right? And, you know, for me personally, I don't get to complain about the person and then continue to show up in that relationship and expect something different, right? And especially if it's a relationship that I have communicated with, or, you know, I've done the work around and I'm still showing up, I got to ask myself what that's all about. I got to take responsibility for that. But what is the beliefs around when you continue to show up and refuse to take a different direction, or you haven't had the capacity or the inspiration to really tell them that this relationship is no longer working for you? So what is your experience with breaking up with somebody? And I'm not talking about intimate relationships. You can, in your mind, if you want to filter in that direction, have at it. But what is your belief around breaking up? You know, I think that there's been like this thing that breaking up is a bad thing, you know, like, you know, if a relationship ends, we're failures, or we've done something bad, and it's not a bad thing. It can be a very healthy thing. And I will end with this thought before we go to break. How many of you have been like, oh, I'm so glad I'm no longer in that relationship. Woo! If I was with that person still, oh my God, I'd probably be in jail. Or, you know, how many of you have said that? And yet there's like this hindering thing around being afraid to remove relationships from our life that are no longer serving us. So I'm challenging you today. All right, so hold that thought. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the beliefs in breaking up, some of those beliefs that may hinder you, some of the beliefs that may support you, and what would be a different way of looking at a breakup. All right, we'll be back. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Know You're Crazy talk show, where today I am talking about how to get rid of relationships that are non-beneficial to you. So far on the show, I have talked about identifying the relationship, some of the symptoms to identify when a relationship is no longer serving you nor beneficial to you. Some of those feelings might be it's heavy when you think about it, you're avoiding phone calls, you're constantly complaining about the relationship, it never seems to work enough for you. When you look back on the relationship, you may realize that when you're interacting with that person, it's always about them. You seldom can get a word in edgewise. They don't inquire about how you're doing. It's constantly about what they're suffering from. It can feel emotionally draining. This is a time when you want to ask yourself which relationships in your life lift you, which relationships in your life drain you, which relationships just aren't showing up for the original agreement you made. And this might be a silent agreement, where everybody showed up to have fun in the beginning and now it's not like that anymore. So there's a silent agreement that every time we get together, you're going to be an emotional wreck and I'm going to be your counselor. That's an agreement because we've been playing that role. I pushed on you a little bit about being accountable to what your part in your relationships is. And I started getting into the breakup before the last break. So we identified which relationships are no longer serving you. I gave symptoms that you may be experiencing that's going on why the relationship isn't serving you. And then we also got into the inventory taking, and that's part of all of that. And now before break, I started talking about breakups. What is your belief behind breakups? And there's so many beliefs about breakups. I was telling Lydia, the producer, I could do an entire show on breakups. The beliefs around breakups. Oh, there's so much stuff. But what I was ending last segment on was explaining breakups are healthy. Thank God for breakups. How many of us have that relationship that went south and we're so thankful because we think, oh my God, if I would have stayed in that thing for another 10, 20 years, I'd probably be in a loony bin right now, right? Like we have those things and we've all got the stories of that one relationship. I mean, maybe we got the stories. Most people, maybe I got the stories. I know I will speak for me. I've got the stories. So breakups are actually a very necessary experience of life. And it's okay. The same person in my life when I was 20 necessarily is not going to match my requirement and my emotional needs in my 40s. Two different worlds. So if the 20-year-old relationship is still showing up in my 40s and they're still behaving like they're 20, I don't want it in my life. I want to break up with that relationship. I get to bring closure to relationships that no longer serve me. For anybody who's gotten sober, we've all had that call, the one from the using days. And we're thinking, oh my, I don't even want to touch that for so many reasons. That person is still drinking. They're still drugging. It might trigger me. I mean, we can get like in panic over recovery when this happens. Breakups are healthy. Breakups are a good thing. Breakups are about you getting rid of the ick that no longer serves you and embracing and opening yourself up for new opportunity of beautiful relationships that complement who you are today and no longer tolerate stuff that doesn't serve you and people that don't serve you. God, there's so much possibility when we clear the junk. There is so much possibility for us because if we surround ourselves with people who complement us, not drag us down or raise us up. I was at an event recently and I was engaged in this conversation with this gentleman who is a very successful entrepreneur. And I felt intimidated. I felt a little intimidated. Like, can I hold my own? You might suffer imposter syndrome every now and then when you place yourself in front of somebody who has something that you aspire to have in your life, or somebody who is more educated in some area, or somebody who knows how to have a hell of a lot more fun than you've been having, right? But usually, so I'm in this conversation with this gentleman and I'm like, I walked away and I was actually talking to my mentor and I said, that conversation helped me grow because I needed to be challenged. I needed to know that I could hold my own to some level, but also be engaged in a beautiful conversation about, I can't even remember what it was. I think it was just business and possibility, but it was challenging me. How many relationships in your life are lifting you up, challenge you lately? Are you putting yourself in a position to be challenged, or are you still tending all those relationships that no longer serve you? This is why a breakup is so important to be able to clear the junk and just get rid of it. So what are your beliefs about breakup? Because I will share with you a lot of beliefs about breakup. Some, okay, I try not to be, assumptive, but people think they're bad. And they think they're going to be mean if they decide to end a relationship. They get all confused about what the other person's going to feel and what the other person's going to think. So stay with me on this. If you have a relationship that you want to end because it keeps coming around and you don't know how to end it, but you continue to show up, and this is your excuse, and it is an excuse, because you're afraid of hurting the other person's feelings. Here's the thing. It's not that you're afraid of hurting the other person's feelings. You're afraid of you yourself feeling guilty about it. You don't want to face what you're going to feel about that breakup, not about the other person. And you can say it is, it's not. It's about you not wanting to face it. And it's about you not wanting to take responsibility for your happiness, because sometimes we have to dig deep in courage to break up relationships that are no longer serving us. How often is it really about the other person? If you're in a relationship, and let's say there's somebody who just is always kind of sucking the life out of you, it's that long lunch that's always about them, and you're so enmeshed in it at this point, you don't even know how to cut them off mid-sentence. I mean, the best you got is just not to answer the phone and go to lunch, but then that doesn't feel right too, and so you've got this weird thing going on, because ultimately you're afraid of breakup. You're afraid of having the tough conversation, right? And that's okay. We're not like, most of us don't come from an upbringing where great communication skills are just blessed upon us. A lot of us, probably are like me, where we've kind of tripped and fallen and gotten back up and redid it and tried it again. Some of us who are passionate about relationships or passionate about this education, like myself, will go out and learn more and read more and figure it out so they can help others. But we're just not, most of us aren't just born with this, or raised in environments that show us how to do this. So it's okay. But really, what I'm pushing you on that is get honest about your motive behind why you may feel a breakup is just too mean, or why it's not healthy. Because is it really healthy for you to be showing up for somebody when you don't really want to be there? I mean, what kind of friend are you being, right? I mean, these are the tough questions that we got to ask ourselves sometimes. So a breakup. So one, we got to get over the feeling that a breakup is mean. So if that's in your world and you just, oh yeah, you might be one of those business people also who are afraid to fire people, to really cut the dead weight. I had an old boss that was like that. And I don't know if it was I don't know what it was all about. But then what ended up happening is we had a whole bunch of employees who were more dramatic than productive. And the rest of us had to kind of like try to figure our way around that, all because nobody was willing to cut the dead weight, right? So there's a place for breakup. There's a place when things no longer fit. And who am I to keep somebody from having an experience? If I'm engaged with a communication with somebody and I'm constantly feeling drained by it, and I'm not like altruistically really feeling like it's 50-50, like I've gone past that point. Now I'm resentful almost. How fair is that to the other person to show up as if you are engaged, or they're thinking you really want to join them, or they're thinking you really want to be included in this relationship when they phone you, or they're thinking that that you're really still honorably showing up to go to lunch when really you're like, I don't want to be there. How fair is that to them? And so, like I said, it's the whole thing around breaking up or really confronting this can feel scary. It can feel mean, but really it's quite healthy if this is a relationship that it's done. So what do we do about that? So what's the appropriate way to end a relationship, to break up with that? How do we script something around letting go of a relationship that we no longer want in our lives? And and if it's not an emotionally draining relationship, like I have in my world, up to a certain point, I used to help a lot of women, and I had to reduce that, not a paid service, but I had to reduce that to be able to grow another area of my life, and I'm still kind of in that world a little bit. And so those aren't draining relationships for me. Those are just relationships that no longer fit the context of where I want to go to my next level. And so that might be some of this for you. And allowing yourself to give yourself permission to make necessary changes so that you can elevate your life in the direction that you want to elevate it. I have a client who recently has changed the identity, and what that person lives has changed financially, relationship wise, emotionally, and physically. Like there's been all these areas that kind of uprooted all of a sudden. And that person now is figuring out who is supporting them in that new identity and who doesn't support them in that new role. And then making really healthy decisions around letting those relationships that no longer support where they are in their life go to the wayside. And they're doing it with the tools that I'm providing to you today. And so how do we end the non-beneficial relationship? How do we bring closure to that which is no longer serving us? We're going to make it real simple. I'm going to hit up on another belief. What is your belief about how to break up with somebody? Do you believe that it has to be face-to-face? Is that something within your deal? Have you ever asked yourself these questions? One, have you ever asked yourself? Because if you've never asked yourself what your beliefs are around breakup or ending a relationship that's non-beneficial to you, it's time to ask. Because if we haven't challenged ourselves with our own questions, how do we know if those beliefs haven't changed? Or how do we know if those beliefs are still the best beliefs, right? Like until I started doing this work, I had never looked around my beliefs at breakup until I had to start experiencing it. And then I had to start thinking, okay, well, how do I feel about that? How do I feel about face-to-face breakup versus a text message breakup or versus a phone call breakup? Like what's appropriate, what's not? And so here's the thing. On today's show, I'm talking about non-beneficial relationships outside of the intimacy world, outside, and there's a whole other topic on those type of breakups, but these are the ones that are just not serving. I think you guys have got that point by now. So this is why I'm reminding you of that though. What's wrong with the text message? What's wrong? Does that feel cold to you? I'm an advocate of a text message breakup. I always have been. And let me also explain, I'm not an advocate of drama, text back and forth and arguing and no. But a simple, hey, I got your voicemail the other day. Thank you for reaching out to me. It's been a long time. However, based on where my life is at, I'm not interested in rekindling this relationship. I do hope all is well for you, though. Take care. Is it really a matter of being mean? Or is it just a matter of, I don't know what to say? Hi, Sally. Thanks for calling me the other day. Unfortunately, for me, this relationship, I'm actually entertaining new opportunities and new relationships. And so I'm just letting go of some of the relationships that I don't see consistently. And so I'm just not interested in meeting for lunch any longer. I do hope all is well with you and your family, though, and please take care. Closure. Do you see how I'm not saying, hey, Judy, when we get together, I'm like praying I don't stab you with my fork. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. And why am I not saying that? Because the same thing I was drilling home earlier, it's not about the other person. It's about me satisfying my needs for my well-being, for my highest self. I don't have to point out to them what's not working for me anymore in this level of relationship. I don't have to rehash everything. I don't have to justify. I don't have to do any of that. I had one scenario where I was having to shift some relationships in my life to open up to new opportunity. And I sent a text message out to several individuals I was working with, and just simply said, this is a time in my life where I'm moving forward in a few areas. Unfortunately, my time commitment is important, and I'm not going to be able to work with you anymore. However, I understand if you'd like to have a phone conversation about this, I will make myself available. Please let me know. You're an amazing individual. You've got a ton of possibility in front of you. I wish you the best. Done. Is that a bad text message? I don't think so. I'm okay. And if they want to talk, then they're grown adults. They get to come back and own that, and they get to come back and tell me what their needs are. I don't have to assume I think I know what they're going to feel if I send a text. I don't have to assume that I think I know how they're going to feel if I do X, Y, and Z. I don't have to future trip that thing out. All I got to do is stay on my side of the road. Because remember, you engaged in the relationship in the beginning of the relationship because it was good and it was filling you up at a certain point, probably. And there was probably fun conversations. And so when you can honor that about the relationship and also honor the fact that it's no longer serving who you are today, there is no need to get on their side of the road. You know, there's just no need. And so you get to come from the I point of view and thank them for being in your life, and also just make them aware that you're changing and moving and doing things, and this relationship just isn't one that you want to continue. That in itself is a breakup. And do you see how it doesn't feel mean? And do you see how it's appropriate and it is still respectful and is still honoring the other person at the other side of that relationship for you? And you get to walk away, and there's no more, guess what happens? Floaties go away. And then suddenly the consciousness opens up to new opportunity. New people are able to come into your experience. Because even if it was one lunch every other month, well, add that up over a span of 10 years. How many lunches and how many hours of your time is that? Like, really ask yourself, how many times are you talking to them? How, if there's a relationship that just, when they call, it's like an hour-long conversation. And for that entire hour, you feel like you want to get off the phone and you can't get off the phone fast enough. How many of those phone calls is it going to take? How much consciousness, how much energy do you want it to block up for you? Or honor yourself enough to break up with the relationships that are no longer serving you, that are no longer beneficial to who you are today with this life experience. We often wonder, how do these people develop these wonderful relationships in their life, and how do they grow, and how do they, go from like one level of opportunity and then really blast into a whole other level? This is part of that process. And it's really about owning who you are surrounding yourself with and realizing, what was I talking? I was talking to somebody the other day, and everything that was coming up was about the other person and what they were doing, and the other person and the decisions they were making. So because they were making those decisions, now this person was going to make those decisions. It was like in this weird retaliatory type of thing. And I just said, well, at some point, you get to own your role in that relationship. Who are you in that relationship? And own it. You guys have heard me say this before. You got to all 100% own that relationship. What is your role? And are you being your best self in that role? And if you're not, because I don't know about you, but my best self is not complaining about somebody, is not tolerating to the point of misery of somebody. It's not gossiping about somebody so that I feel better about me. Like, none of those are my best self. And so if that is what starts to come up for me in a relationship, whether it's an acquaintance or a friend that, the agreements have changed, like whatever it is, if that's what's coming up for me, I got to own that, because it's not fair. Who do you want to be in your relationships today? And who do you want to be? I mean, who do you want to surround you about? Who do you want to surround you? Do you want fun and levity? Do you want equalness? Do you desire challenge? What circles are you placing yourself within in order to emotionally elevate? What circles are you placing yourself in? So when I talk about, in recovery, or even in some, motivational circles, where they're talking about, to be with the winners, you got to hang with the winners. It's about mindset. What mindset do I want in my circle? What mindset do I want to surround myself with? And if you are surrounding yourself around emotionally draining people, or you've become an unlicensed counselor. And so you just got a ton of advice, and yet the person receiving the advice ain't changing. I mean, boy, that's a frustrating one. That's one of the reasons when I opened up this show today and I said, you know what? I work with inspiring people. I work with people who inspire me. I work with people who are willing to do the work. Because if you're not willing to do the work, it gets real old real quick to coach somebody who doesn't want to do the work, and you just see the spinning, right? You just see the spinning. Well, some of you aren't coaches, but you're just that really good friend that everybody comes to, and you're constantly preaching, you're constantly giving feedback, and they're never changing. And then in the background, you're feeling resentful, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're complaining to the wife, the husband, the partner, whatever you got going on, because you have taken the role, you have an agreement established where you are the counselor. And yet you have no tools maybe to either get them to, understand they're not taking any action, or it's not your place to tell them, or whatever that role agreement is. And so now the relationship is no longer 50-50. You have to be responsible to changing up the agreement. The agreement's changed, right? And so when the agreement changed, the roles change. I was thinking about how many minutes I got left. I got a few minutes left. So I'll leave you with this today. I'll talk a little bit about this. Ask yourself, what are the relationships you want, and do some writing on it. What would you like to see in your life? And look at all 4 key areas. Like really look at your life and say, professionally, am I attracting all the right relationships that I want to attract? And if I want to attract different relationships, or if I want to elevate professionally with my skill set, what type of relationships would I need? And then take a look at your professional relationships and see which ones are on that, like in that category within those roles with you, and which ones are not. And then ask yourself, what would I have to do to attract one more cool professional relationship? If they're friendships, same thing. Where am I meeting friends at? How do I get more involved with friends? What friends are no longer working for me? Why are they no longer working for me? See, everything that I'm challenging you on today is this is just coaching. This is just to get you to think a little bit deeper, a little bit more thorough. If you've been watching me for a while, or you're tuning in on these shows, I already know you're somebody who's interested in growth. And I know you're somebody who's interested in change. And so that's why I keep pushing you on it, because most people who aren't interested in that next level, who aren't willing to admit that they need some change in their life, aren't going to listen to this show. That's all there is to it. They're just not going to listen to the show. They're going to tune out. So professional relationships, acquaintance relationships, what would you like to see in your life? Some of the best relationships I've recently found myself creating and cultivating are relationships at the gym in the health area. And I've been going to the gym consistently, I think, for almost 8 years now. But I didn't really start cultivating those relationships and actually going out to coffee with somebody till like a few months ago. So I had this whole resource of, and actually like a pool of cool women to pick from. And I'm sure there's some cool guys in there too. But I have agreements with my husband. So that's just, and that's good. That's how we keep our marriage healthy. So I look to the women to form relationships in that category from. That's what works for me. And but now there's like this whole pool of cool individuals that I can go up and ask and meet and talk to, invite out for coffee. And that's a whole area of my life that I would love to know what they do for their health, especially as I get older. And are you experiencing these type of things with your body? Do you realize a French fry now adds 5 pounds? All those things. So that's the health category. What about your financial category? Who in your world do you talk money with? If you're a higher level income, but your friends maybe aren't, you may not feel unsatisfied in that arena. Who do you talk to about those things? And I'm talking to a financial advisor. Do you have acquaintances that can really rap about investment? Do you have those acquaintances around you that can elevate you financially to challenge you? I told you that story about having that conversation with that gentleman at a professional event recently and how much it challenged me. It opened me up to some things that I'd like to learn. I got to watch and witness things that he was doing so that I can learn from that. It was an uplifting event for me because I got challenged. All right, I'm about done. I'm going to wrap this sucker up. All right, so how do you get rid of relationships that are no longer benefiting you? In a very, very quick recap. One, you're going to identify the floaty or the, what was the other thing I called it? The clinger. You got to identify it. The symptoms of that is it feels heavy when you think about them. When you're sitting in front of them, it's more you doing the work. They're not really bringing anything to you anymore. It's hanging on and you would rather go without it. You're avoiding their phone calls. Take an inventory of your relationships and ask yourself, which of these relationships in my life are feeling like this? Which ones feel heavy? Which ones feel uplifting? You will get your answer very quickly. Challenge yourself on your breakup beliefs. If I was to end this relationship, how would I do it? Would I do it verbally? Would I do it over the phone? Or would I do it by text message? And if one feels kind of ugly, maybe ask myself, why do I feel that way about that style? Next, come up with your script. What is your script? Hi, thanks for reaching out. It was very nice talking. It was very nice that you thought of me. However, I'm not in a place to rekindle this friendship with you. I do hope all is well for you. Please take care. I just wanted to let you know I'm making some changes in my life right now for X reasons. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to continue our friendship. I hope all is well for you and that you stay blessed. That's it. That's it. Not mean. It's not cutting. You stay on your side of the road. That's the gist of it. And why do we do this work? Because we want to emotionally elevate. We want to take ourselves to new levels and have a grand journey of life to enjoy and to be satisfied. That's what this thing's all about. And relationships are a key part of that. All right, folks, that's a wrap. If you have any interest in coaching with me, remember, you got to bring it. I only want to work with people who are inspiring. Reach out to my email on my website at susandenee.com, or you can check out any of my social media. And I will close with this. Thank you to those folks in my life who support me on social media. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for honoring that. I know who you are, Lisa, Sandra, Joe. And I just want to say thank you, because when you're in this role and you're doing this job and you've got people who've been around you for years and they just kind of don't, there's some that show up and there's some that don't for you. And I just want to honor that and say thank you. I so appreciate it. And Molly, thank you, Molly. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Have a good one. You have been listening to Know You're Crazy. Crazy. And my name is Susan Denee. We are identifying, understanding, and treating your crazy one episode at a time. Tune in to transformationtalkradio.com. To connect with me or Growth Spurt Your Life, please visit susandenee.com. That's Susan Denee, DENEE.com.